Hello, true health seekers, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Learn True Health podcast. My guest today is a biohacker. He's an executive health coach, and he uses the latest science, research, understanding of epigenetics, and all the gadgets you could possibly imagine to help us break through and achieve the results we're looking to achieve in our health. Now, I'm really excited to bring you all this information. I learned a ton from interviewing him. But I have to apologize. The quality of the audio in the first half of the interview is just a little bit off. So if you can bear with me and listen and hear the information, you're going to receive a ton of great, nuggets that you can begin to implement into your life to achieving your health results. So I apologize for the quality of the audio. I'm doing my best to make sure that the quality of the audio and the quality of the questions and the interviews and of course the experts that I interview are going to bring you the best information possible to help you achieve all your health goals. So enjoy today's show. Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 45. Boy, well, I'm really excited about our next guest because he is a biohacker. Don't get to meet very many biohackers these days. So you're a bit of a cowboy, a pioneer in your field. Welcome to the show, Anthony DiClementi.
Thank you for having me, Ashley.
Excellent. So you are an executive health and fitness coach, a biohacker, and you specialize in functional medicine. How did you get started in this? What happened that you one day woke up and said, I'm going to be a biohacker?
Well, it started like many fitness professionals. I focused primarily on nutrition and exercise and mindset stuff. And we had a lot of success with our clients, but we still had a certain percentage of people that weren't getting the results that they were looking for. And we weren't sure why. And it wasn't really until my own health started taking a nosedive. I started waking up more and more fatigued. I felt like I aged decades in a very short period of time. I didn't know what was wrong with me. And I saw about 12 doctors over a period of 12 months trying to figure it out. And I kept a lot of it to myself because, who wants to work with a health coach who's trying to figure out what's wrong with them? And, it wasn't until I started realizing that exercise and nutrition and mindset stuff is just a very small percentage of the overall pie that influences our cellular biology and health and vitality. It turned out that I had chronic Lyme disease. So I'd been bit by a tick at some point and didn't treat it. And it just got worse and worse and worse. And Lyme is known as the great imitator. So you have symptoms of over 200 other diseases. And along my journey, I thought I had about 199 of those before we realized it was Lyme disease.
Wow.
So I started working with all sorts of different functional medicine practitioners and scientists and experts in the space trying to figure out what was wrong with me. I read every book that I could get my hands on. I started diving deep into the different technology that existed, stuff that people were using to improve some of the things that I was struggling with: cognition, energy, body composition, people that had fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, digestive disorders, neurological disorders. And then at the other end of the spectrum, some of the tools and technologies that were being used by elite athletes and people at the pinnacle of their chosen field. Because what I found was that those two extremes kind of inform the mean. And a lot of that technology and those strategies, when they're utilized by people like us that represent, kind of the normal population, it's able to dramatically enhance our energy and focus. And that was how it kind of opened my eyes to the fact that there was so much more to it than what a lot of us are doing, which is just working out and eating better. And then when you take into account that there's a tremendous amount of misinformation out there where, if people are relying on newsletters and blog posts, unless they're incredibly selective, there's a lot of keyboard quarterbacks and armchair experts that are feeding people misinformation. And we're in a day and age when anyone can put up a WordPress website. We're taking a lot of things at face value and not considering the source, and it's misleading a lot of us. And I think we're seeing a lot of people struggling and starting to say, all right, I want to take control of my health. I want to get the right information, not information that's based on getting me to buy someone else's stuff that's actually working in the real world, anecdotal case studies. And that's what we've started teaching clients now.
How long have you been a health coach?
So I started back in 2000. Well, I started doing it full time back in 2008. So we're coming up on the decade mark, but I've been in health and fitness. I grew up playing sports all my life, soccer through college at the University of Illinois, and then afterwards continued doing health and fitness coaching just part-time. It was something I didn't think that I would be able to make a living out of, but I was still incredibly passionate about it. And then when I had the opportunity to start doing it full-time and really get all this stuff figured out with my own health, that was when I decided to dedicate my life to it, and that this was something that a lot of other people were also interested in having some help with.
Awesome. Now, I know that you, obviously through your own life experience, your own research, you're really self-taught, but what kind of degrees or certifications does it take to become, the level of expert that you are?
So I have a bunch of certifications. I'm, an NCSF certified personal trainer, certified nutrition specialist, and a whole bunch of others. But to be quite frank, and I had this conversation with the P90X man, Tony Horton, a couple weeks ago, I think certifications are ridiculous for the most part. It's a lot of the direction that many colleges are going, where people are leaving. They're feeling like they've spent $150,000, sometimes more, and they're going out and they can't get a job that's paying them 35, 40 grand a year. And I think that many certifications, they give people a very, if you can go and get a certification in a weekend, how much are you really able to learn? Mm-hmm. I think if this is an industry where people are very intelligent today. There's a lot of, we have the internet, we have the world at our fingertips, and the clientele that I'm working with are savvy individuals, and they're well educated. They know as much or more than many of the personal trainers and even fitness professionals out there. So it's not something where if someone has the misconception that they're going to be able to go to a weekend excursion, get some certification, and that's going to be sufficient to change people's lives, I think that that's a misunderstanding. And I think the reality is that if you really want to be good in anything, you almost need to be obsessed with it, mm-hmm. and take on the student mindset and that of someone that is a lifelong learner. And that's kind of my outlook. Tony Horton, who's probably the best living personal trainer, at least if you measure best in terms of the amount of lives he's changed, has 0 certifications. And I've invested a lot of money in them. I've gone through them. And what I've found time and time again is that what you end up learning is it helps. It's good as a part of continuing your education, but as a standalone, if someone thinks they're going to go get a certification and that's going to be enough, it's not.
So we talked right before we hit record, and you'd mentioned the word epigenetics, which I'm really very interested in. Dr. Wallach, who is one of my heroes, and I've been learning from him for several years, wrote a book on epigenetics, and that opened my eyes to that, MDs will say, oh, you're obese because, it's genetic, or you're, blank, fill in the blank, whatever disease you have, it's genetic because your grandfather had it, so that's why you have it. And now we're learning that through nutritional changes, dietary changes, lifestyle changes, we can actually change our genetics, because our genetic processes turn on and off based on the amount or lack of nutrition that's in our body. What have you been able to do with epigenetics in terms of helping people regain their health?
Yeah. So I think we're just beginning to understand the role that epigenetics play in our lives. And for a long time, we believed that we were primarily slaves to our genetic blueprint. And what we're starting to realize is that we have a lot more control over our physical and mental and health and our lifespan than we ever thought possible. A lot of experts now estimate that about 60% of our physical and genes that express themselves are within our control, and we can influence those genes and literally turn them on and off through the food that we put in our bodies, what we do with our bodies in terms of, through our nutrition, our movement, how we manage our stress, sleep, the supplements that we take. Are we staying hydrated? Are we getting enough sunlight? How is our breathing? Our mindset and our habits. Are we able to? Are we actively bringing ourselves into a state of gratitude and appreciation? A lot of times, we're as happy as we make up our minds to be, and all of these things have profound downstream effects, both on the biological and the biochemical levels. And we're seeing that they turn our genes on and off. And so it's quite exciting and quite empowering time to be alive, because we're no longer the victims that we'd kind of assumed for a long time, where, there's nothing I can do about it. I guess I'm just going to have to accept it.
Mm-hmm. Now, you have a book, and this is a free book that you are giving people. It's the website's biohackingsecrets.com. Can you tell us a bit about that?
It is, yes. The book is called The Biohacker's Guide to Upgraded Energy and Focus. And what we wanted to do is we felt like the health space was inundated with all sorts of different weight loss books and courses. And what a lot of clients were coming to me for help with was, they wanted to lose weight. Of course, I think most folks are looking to improve their body composition on some level, whether that's building more lean muscle, burning more fat, or doing both simultaneously. But what a lot of the clientele that I work with, which is high-level executives and entrepreneurs and people that are really passionate about living the highest quality of life possible, living their best life and not settling for a life that is less than they're capable of. They wanted more energy, and they wanted more mental clarity, and they wanted to be able to spend more time in a state that exemplified both of those things. So what we did is we put together this book that teaches people a lot of the most advanced strategies that can be utilized to increase energy, focus, mental clarity. And we put it together in a way that is similar to what I do with a lot of my one-on-one clients, because I can only work with so many people, and I didn't want that to be a limiting factor. I didn't want people to not be able to improve their situation if that's something that they wanted and were motivated to do. So we wrote this book and we said, look, let's make it even better. Let's create something amazing and let's give it away for free.
Very cool. Well, I went to your website and watched a few of your videos. So I thought they were pretty cool. I liked your story, and you had a video where you were getting into almost like a hyperbaric chamber, the sub-zero chamber, and you had all things hooked up to you. And is this something that when someone comes to you, there's a bunch of different gadgets or devices that help them? Is this what biohacking is, or can you explain more about what does biohacking look like if I were to come to you as one of your clients?
Yeah. So, the definition of biohacking that we have in the book is strategically changing your internal and external environment to rapidly enhance the body, upgrade the brain, and create an epic life. It's the art and science of optimizing human performance. And that has to do with a lot of the epigenetic elements that we touched on earlier. With we've split the book up into two different parts. So you've got like the foundation, which are the things that all of us need for to live our highest quality of life, to maximize our energy and mental clarity and just feel incredible. And then there's troubleshooting, which are some of the things that can slow us down, bottleneck our progress, and sometimes things that we need to address if we want to experience our highest quality of life possible. So like on the foundation side of things, we go through nutrition, movement, stress management, sleep, customized supplements, hydration, oxygenation, light, mindset, and habits. And then if all of those things are in place, then we teach people how to troubleshoot things like gut dysfunction and hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis dysregulation, or as it's commonly known, adrenal fatigue, thyroid disorders, high cholesterol, heart disease, mitochondrial dysfunction, and a number of other things that I commonly see with clients that can keep people stuck. And what we do with clients is everything is customized. I truly believe that generic programs produce generic results. And that was why in writing this book, I wanted people to be able to get a glimpse of what may be going on with them on a cellular level. It's why I created symptom-based questionnaires, where if you go to the section on hypothyroidism, I'll ask a number of different questions that we see in individuals that may be dealing with Hashimoto's or a thyroid disorder. And if you're answering yes to a number of those questions, then that's an indicator that may be something you want to look into. And that may be a contributing factor in you feeling a little bit more tired, or maybe your hair's falling out, or maybe the outside of your eyebrows are thinning. Maybe your hair, skin, and nails aren't as vibrant and youthful as you would like them. And then we teach people how to fix some of these things. So when I work with clients, I first figure out what's going on with them, because we're all different. And I figure out what is most important to them, because someone may, they could stand to benefit from losing 20 or 30 pounds. But if they're in a state of chronic fatigue and they've got a young child that they feel that they're struggling to take care of, and that is a higher priority issue for them, well, then my job is to get them feeling more energetic and immediately. And then we can tackle the weight issue. So what I do is I build out a custom program based on the client's gender, age, lifestyle, preferences, goals, genetic background. I teach them what are the best laboratory tests to get that are going to give us a look inside their bodies, what's taking place on a cellular level. I give them a number of proprietary health questionnaires so that we could see if some of these other health issues may be contributing factors. And we start optimizing. And then I send them, a lot of times clients they'll sign up for coaching. Most of the time it's for a year. And we'll include like a weekend where they come in and we work together in person to build out a daily routine that's going to foster the fastest and easiest path to success. I'm a big believer in doing the least necessary, not the most possible. So I teach people the highest leverage activities to help them feel more vitality, improve their mood, and help with body composition and all sorts of things like that. So I send them a big menu and I'll say, here are all the things that we could do that I think may benefit you. Pick the ones that most excite you, that you think could be the most beneficial, and let's create an amazing weekend.
I love that you said that you're picking the biggest items that have the most leverage, because there's so many times when I've been with a fitness coach where I feel like they're just giving me, like you said, a very generic plan's going to get generic results. And I never felt like I was getting the sort of like, here's the most impactful things you could do, and then here's the lesser impactful things, and then here's the things that really, you don't have to do, but you could do it for bonus points. And I'd love that list. What are some really high impact things that someone could do to immediately begin to improve their health, no matter where they are in the scale of where their health is? What are some, like, just across the board? I know it's generic, but across the board, what are like the mandatory things that are high impact that you want everyone to do?
Sure. Well, I try not to generalize, but I'm going to in this case, given the context of the conversation. going back to what we talked about earlier, the extremes inform the mean, but not the other way around. So a lot of the same strategies that work and improve the quality of lives and the energy and focus of people that are dealing with chronic degenerative conditions and neurological disorders, obesity, and the same things that also help elite athletes and people at the top of their game can help all of us. And far and away, the biggest thing that I've found is identifying the foods that are initiating an immunogenic and allergenic response for you and eliminating or at least minimizing their consumption. What we don't eat is more important than what we do eat.
Wow.
And a lot of people, we assume sometimes, and I was this way for most of my life, if you eat a Twinkie or a ding dong, if you follow that up with an apple, you net it out. And unfortunately, as much as I wish it worked that way, it doesn't, because what happens is when we consume foods, and we're all different this way, and one of the things that I teach my clients is how to figure out the foods that are most problematic for them. But what I'll do is I'll share what I call the big five that the largest cross section of the population has problems with. But there's a long list of foods that we've seen that can be problematic for people, and I teach my clients in the first phase of their program how to identify those and create a customized nutrition program that's going to give them the type of body they want, the energy they want, the mental clarity they want, and the type of happiness, the mood, the emotional state that we all want to live in. And but the big five are grains, dairy, alcohol, sugar, and processed foods. We'll kind of combine those two for simplicity, and GMOs. So the main GMOs being corn, soy, canola oil. And those five are the categories that I've seen adversely impact the largest cross-section of the population.
I love what you're saying, because I actually removed all of those from my
Awesome.
diet. Yeah, it's about 5 years ago I started on my health journey, went gluten-free, then got rid of GMOs, then started eating all organic, and in the last about 4 months my family's gone completely grain-free. Of course and we're dairy, soy, and corn-free. I noticed every time I ate corn, I had these crazy symptoms, like weird, like my eyes would burn and I'd get gas. And then I'd feel like I was like flu-like symptoms. Anytime I came out of a movie theater, I always walked in feeling great, walked out of a movie theater feeling like I had the flu.
Right. And it didn't happen when we were kids.
No, I could eat popcorn like all day long when we were kids. And then somewhere in the late 90s, early 2000s, I just started feeling like I had the flu every time I ate popcorn. And then with soy, I started getting the same symptoms, and then with dairy. And so I just was like, man, and I did the elimination diet, so removing these foods, but I see so many people who have these symptoms, and when I mention that they could remove the foods, they go, oh, I don't know, I couldn't live without pizza. I don't know how I'd be able to not eat pasta. And I'm like, they're habituated to feeling really crappy.
Yeah.
They only, took that step. So I guess your clients are really motivated to change their health by when they've come to you and they've hired you, they're obviously motivated. But what kind of resistance do people put up when you go, yeah, all those favorite foods, you stop eating them?
Well, so here's the thing. I'm Italian and Greek, and I get it. If you told me I was not going to be eating pizza for the rest of my life, I might go crawl in bed and cry for a couple days. So I think that our goal, I believe that feeling good is our highest goal. And the clarity that I help clients get is, all right, let's first make the connection of what this food is doing to us, because a lot of these things that you may consider arthritis, that you may consider depression, that you may consider chronic fatigue, that you may consider being big boned and genetically predisposed to being overweight, they may all be tied to the stuff that you're putting in your mouth. And I don't say let's eliminate everything. I say let's figure out what is the right diet for you. And I'd like you to play along with me for a couple weeks. We're gonna see what it feels like for you to eat really, really, really clean, and not clean in the way that like bodybuilders and stuff like that talk about eating clean. Clean in a way where we are staying away from all of the foods that are known to potentially initiate an immunogenic and allergenic response, foods that can disrupt the gut microbiome and cause histamine intolerance and a whole host of other things that I've seen just muddy the waters. And the benefit of that is not that people go, oh my God, I feel so good, I'm never eating pizza again. Thank you for showing me the way, Anthony. Doesn't happen. But what does happen is a lot of times 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, they'll say, I feel amazing. They'll go out, they'll eat the pizza, they'll have some cocktails, and they'll call me the next day and they'll say, I feel like Bud. And it's a self-correcting process because it's actually by helping them feel really, really good, it's more apparent how much they move down that continuum when they put these things in their body, and they don't want to feel that way. Or at least they want to spend less time feeling that way. And then we start opening up our eyes to the fact that, all right, every time I get out of the shower and I see myself in the mirror and I don't like the way my body looks, I beat myself up and I say really, really mean things to myself that if anyone else said them to me, I would punch them in the face. But I say them to myself every single day. And then they start making the connection that the food is doing that. They start making the connection that pain in their knee that they thought was an old high school football injury. Oh no, that happens when you eat a whole bunch of grains, dairy, soy, processed foods. And when you stop, the pain goes away. The fact that they sometimes deal with depression and their mood is erratic. Oh, they start making the connection that has to do with the food they're eating and the overall lifestyle that they're living. And they start, when that connection is made, they say, all right, so there's a lot more to this. It's this food, although it tastes really good for 5 to 30 minutes, it's causing me to feel bad for days and weeks afterwards. And their awareness, it's things that are going on the entire time, but we're overlooking them. We're not making the connection, and consequently, we continue to make decisions that keep us stuck.
Why do you think that is? Do you think people have an addictive behavior? Do you think these foods cause an addiction? Why do you think we go back to the foods we know are harming us?
Well, for one, the simple answer is they're delicious. I know when I was really sick, it was easier for me to be so strict with this stuff. And that's what I see with clients too. The people that are really struggling with health issues and have the most extreme reactions to foods have an easier time avoiding them. Because if they have a couple drinks, the next day is a nightmare for them. If they go out for pizza and beer, it's like they're in bed the whole next day. They're depressed. They feel like a completely different human being. Whereas someone who is generally healthy, but maybe they're carrying around 10 to 20 extra pounds, and besides that, they don't notice too much from consuming these immunogenic and allergenic foods. Maybe they're a little bit more mentally slow after a night out drinking and having dairy and grains. The pain level for those people isn't as high. So we're motivated by pain by avoiding pain far more than the opportunity to gain pleasure. And when I was really sick and I would get punished physically and mentally by putting these foods in my body, it was a lot easier to avoid them. But when you're feeling good, sometimes you're saying, you know what, in the context of everything else I've been doing, I feel like I've earned a small, some dietary freedom and flexibility. I want to have some of these foods. But like you said, these foods are very addicting. And even people that know they need to avoid them, they know that it is destroying their health. They know that it is holding them back from becoming the best versions of themselves and living a life that is truly remarkable. We know these foods release the same chemicals in our brain as street drugs like cocaine and heroin, and they're a lot more accessible. So if we have, if you were to take an alcoholic and stock their cabinets with liquor on a long enough timeline, they're going to booze, no matter how much willpower they have, or at least most people will. And it's kind of like that with food.
It's exactly why I shop the perimeter of the grocery store and I don't allow junk food in my house, because I know at 11 o'clock at night, I have no more willpower. My willpower is used up.
Oh, yeah. Mine too. I moved in September, and I moved into a pretty nice high rise here in Chicago that's right next to a chocolate factory.
No!
And I like sleeping with my windows open, especially when it's cool outside. And it was like the cartoons when you see they have like this scent, and the character picks up the scent and is like following it to the food. I would wake up at 4 a.m. and I'd be smelling the chocolate from the chocolate factory permeating my apartment. And I would get up in like this half like sleepwalking, half possessed state, and beeline to my cabinets and just tear through them until I found the closest thing that resembled chocolate. And like within the first couple of months of moving here, my chocolate consumption went up like 10,000%. And I was like, all right, I need to get a grip or close my windows, or both. And but yeah, it's something that we are all vulnerable to. And the key is figuring out, just being real with yourself about your strengths and your weaknesses. And I know if I have stuff in the house, I'm going to eat it. I've tried and failed time and time again. So I make sure that if I'm going to give myself a little bit more dietary liberties, I do it in a way that's where there's not going to be leftovers in my home. I'm getting rid of it. It's planned. It's a little bit structured, and it's a food that is going to give me the highest enjoyment while I eat it.
Can you share with us like a day in the life of Anthony? Share kind of like, what does your breakfast, lunch, and dinner look like?
Yeah, sure. Just in terms of nutrition.
Just like what do you eat?
Yeah.
What's on your plate?
So for me, a little bit of background. My dad was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2015, and so that has influenced my diet a little bit, because I would prefer to avoid the same fate. And so if I were to generalize my diet right now, it's about 80% plants, most of those plants being vegetables, most of those vegetables being green. My primary sources of protein are wild-caught fish and oysters. And I allow my protein consumption to be dictated by my if I'm craving protein. Otherwise, I focus on plants and healthy plant-based fats, and then I include some of the paleo foods, but the grass-fed beef and things like that. I try to keep the grass-fed beef and the red meats to no more than once a week. With a lot of clients, we'll structure it as like rather than a cheat day, we'll call it a meat day. And that's not only because we found a lot of people have improved body composition, energy, mental clarity with that structure, but also because it's just better for our planet. And I'll usually fast until I get hungry. And then when I get hungry, I'll do something that I talk about in the book that is called a keto cocktail. So I consume some exogenous ketones. And for listeners that are familiar with the ketogenic diet or aren't familiar with the ketogenic diet, ketones can kind of be seen as like the fourth macronutrient. So you've got your proteins, your carbohydrates, your fats. And I do believe in the next 10 to 20 years, we'll probably look at ketones as another macronutrient. It's an energy producing molecule. So I'll consume a keto cocktail using a recipe similar to what I do have in the book. So let's say it's some keto OS, like some exogenous beta hydroxybutyrate, and then
And that's with coconut oil?
I'll do it with C8 pure caprylic acid, MCT oil. So it's not just coconut oil, which is really high in lauric acid. It's not just MCT oil, but it's specifically the C8 isomer of MCT oil, which most effectively crosses the blood-brain barrier and is the most valuable from a perspective of allowing our body, helping our body to burn fat as fuel.
Just totally out of curiosity, what brand of this, what do you call it, a supplement or an oil? What brand do you recommend? Because there's so many out there.
Yeah, I use Perillo Captri. And I mean, I've done the Bulletproof Brain Octane, and what I found was I like I'm constantly adjusting my supplements and my protocol. I look at it as, like we talked about earlier, having an attitude of lifelong learning and always having a willingness to experiment and test new things, and coming at your routine and your nutrition and your workouts with a curiosity and the overall objective of Kaizen, constant improvement, constant optimization. So this is what I'm doing right now. It doesn't mean this is what I'll be doing 6 weeks from now. But I do Perillo Captri. I find that you get more for your money than with the bulletproof stuff, and I like it better. So that's what I'm using right now.
Cool. I love that you mentioned Kaizen. For those who don't know what Kaizen is, it's funny that you mentioned this, because I heard it recently on another podcast that I was listening to. But the difference between why the Japanese automakers are so successful year after year, for the last 50, 60 years, they've been able to stick it out, whereas so many other automakers have come and gone, and is that they don't believe in these giant leaps in technology. They believe in Kaizen, which is small, continuous growth. And a lot of us in America, at least, or I mean, I think it's like more than just America, but a lot of us looking at the media, we seem to have been enchanted by The Biggest Loser and by all these other, health shows where by the beginning they're 400 pounds and by the end of their, 175 and they're all muscle. And so we think, I'm going to lose 20 pounds a month, or I'm going to lose 50 pounds a month. And we're, brainwashed to think that we're going to have these giant results. And then we do something totally radical and end up harming our body rather than making those lifestyle changes to make permanent long-term Kaizen, long-term slow progress towards health. So you've helped a ton of people, and I want to get back to what your day looks like, because we recently had, believe it or not, a very successful athlete on the show who's a raw vegan, and she shared her entire day's worth of food, and it was very interesting. So I want to get back to that, but I also wanted to bring up that you had shared with me that you and your team of world-class experts have been helping thousands of people over the years, help them to recover from many disorders, many diseases like thyroid problems and neurodegenerative conditions, chronic fatigue, like you mentioned before, fibromyalgia, cancer, anxiety, and this list goes on and on and on. I'm curious to know. I'd love for you to share a few success stories of people that you've helped, like that you personally help someone recover from cancer.
No, we've had people that have had cancer in their family that have came to us with because they've wanted to sidestep that themselves and avoid falling victim to that same fate. I think a lot of us look at our parents in particular, and we see that as, is this going to be me, 20, 30 years down the road? So a lot of clients will hire me and they'll say, look, my mom and my dad both lost their lives to cancer. I've already had a scare with prostate cancer, and I need to get my life in order. Can you help me? and then we'll start working together. And so I want to be clear. I'm not curing people of cancer. I don't want the FDA coming and banging down my door. But it's situations where people have had, they know that cancer is a part of their familial genetics. They see some of the things that their parents or brothers or sisters have struggled with, and they say, I don't want that. Or maybe they've already dealt with it on some level, and they're saying, can you help me get to a better place so this doesn't happen again? And those are more the situations where we help people as it pertains to cancer. But one of the stories most recently, so there's a couple that come to mind. We'll start with the one that's not as gross, and then if you guys want the gross one, I'll share, share the gross one, as long as nobody's eating. So one of my clients, she's a 33-year-old neurologist. I work with a good amount of physicians, and I have a lot of folks in our space. They have an attitude where they don't necessarily appreciate physicians, and I'm quite the opposite. I think there's a lot of doctors out there that are doing incredible work, and I think that our medical system has many merits, especially in terms of trauma care and acute injuries and acute conditions. Where I'm working with a lot of these physicians and practitioners is helping them with chronic conditions, things that they've struggled with for years or decades. And one of them was a 33-year-old neurologist. I'm trying to give her a pseudonym here just because she's asked that I don't put it out there that she was dealing with rheumatoid arthritis. So let's call her Rocky. Okay. Hopefully I won't use her real name. I've never tried telling the story with a pseudonym.
I can edit it out.
Okay. So Rocky came to me, 33-year-old neurologist, very successful. She's been she's been on thyroid medications since her early teens. It's almost 2 decades. She's been on Synthroid. Her arthritis had progressed to such a degree that she couldn't carry her groceries. She was even having trouble opening the front door to her condo. And she said, I need help. What can you do? So we started, and at the beginning, working out and physical activity it wasn't even really an option. And so we would work together. I built out a program for her. When she was ready, we started doing things in person. We started doing treatments using some of the biohacking technology that I have here in Chicago. And she would come over, and if we were going to work together for an hour, the whole time would be pretty passive for her. And it would just be using things like pulsed electromagnetic fields and different cold laser therapy and a number of different things here, light therapy, a whole bunch of different stuff. We got her on a supplement program. We got her avoiding some of the foods that we identified to be immunogenic and allergenic for her, got her including more of the right foods in her diet. Within 2 months, which sounds almost too good to be true, she had taken herself off of all of her arthritis medications. I did not tell her to do that. In fact, I told her not to do that. I thought it was too soon. But she has her doctorate. She knows what she's doing, and she's been off of them since. This week, or yesterday, we went for a 20-minute run. And this week is the first time that she has 5 workout sessions scheduled in a row. We're now doing 0 treatment, and today was just her second 1-hour workout in a row. And this was just a few months ago that we started working together.
That's awesome. I love hearing that, because so many people think that just because they have a diagnosis, it's like permanent. Most
of these things that we consider permanent, I believe, are not.
Absolutely.
And I've seen it with clients. I've seen it with my own dad in Parkinson's. When he's dialed into his program, everything reverses. The tremors stop. His mind becomes sharp again. He's physically strong again. The problem is that the behavioral changes are difficult, and they're often preceded by making the right mindset shifts and having valuing our physical and mental state more than some of the benefits we get from putting these things in our body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dr. Wallach, who's a naturopathic physician, has been helping people reverse neurodegenerative disorders like Parkinson's and MS and Alzheimer's. And he says that most of the time, it's actually all of them are caused by the same thing. It's just the symptoms are showing up in different areas of the neurology. He says it's the body doesn't have the raw building blocks to rebuild the myelin sheath, so it doesn't have enough healthy fat, healthy cholesterol to rebuild, and that there's too much oxidative damage that's tearing it down. And so that's from the foods.
Is this Dr. William Pollack?
No, Dr. Joel Wallach.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He's like a 76, I think he's 76 now, year old naturopathic physician he's a firecracker. But yeah, you can Google him, and tons of his videos will come up. But yeah, I've been studying all of his work, and it's just amazing because recently a friend of mine, a few months ago, she's in her 30s, she was diagnosed with MS, and my friend, who's her best friend, is all about natural medicine. So the two of us were, giving her all this information and, showing her that she could reverse her MS naturally. And she chose to go the not natural route and just get tons and tons of drugs pumped in her body and shots and not change her diet at all. And when we looked at her diet, she goes karaokeing, she eats bar food, pub food. Every single meal she has is either cereal or fried food. And it's just no wonder that she's in her 30s and she has MS. And now, because she's on all these drugs, her symptoms are suppressed. So she thinks she's better, she's cured, and she's continued to eat unhealthfully. So sorry to get off on that tangent, but it fascinates me that there is literally a cure for all these diseases, and it's not the MDs are not taught it. So her MDs told her, okay, here's all these drugs. And when she asked her MDs, well, should I change my diet? They kind of gave her a blank look, like, well, you could if you want to, but we don't know any research around that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for the folks listening that are like thinking to themselves, well, of course these people don't want to change their diet. Like to not eat any of these foods for the rest of your life sounds terrible. And it's not like that. I mean, there's so many components to a state of optimal wellness where you feel energetic and passionate and your body looks good. Nutrition is one of them. It's a big part, probably the biggest, but there's also your movement patterns, exercise. How do you manage your stress? What type of sleep do you get, both in quality and duration, and a whole bunch of other things. There was Anthony Bourdain of No Reservations. He found himself in a situation where his doctor looked at him and said, "You need to go on statins. You're in bad shape." And he said, "Well, I'm sorry." The physician gave him a choice. He said, "You can either go on statins and a number of other medications and keep eating the food that you're eating, or you can change your diet." And he said, to him as a chef, changing his diet was like blasphemy. And he felt like he wasn't going to be living if he stopped eating these foods. And it's a big part of what he does, of course, for his income.
I watch all his shows, and every time I watch, most of the food he eats, I would never be able to touch. And it's just so funny to watch it. And I think, man, I can't believe he's still alive. He's kind of sort of like, Keith Richards, it's just like this guy, Anthony Bourdain's probably gonna live to be like 120, and whereas all of us, if we ate the way he did and drank how he drank, we'd all be in the grave.
Right.
But watching him, I'm just like, I am surprised he's still standing, the kind of foods he eats, but he is so passionate about it and it brings him so much joy. It really does speak to that there's this element of emotional health and mental health that we need to have to also balance out the physical health. What's the use what's the use in having health if you're completely depressed and you're not living your life purpose?
Yeah. That is a huge part of it. And I'll share a funny story from this past weekend when I had a client in for an intensive. But with Anthony Bourdain, what he found was at first he got on the statins, but then he started doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Nice.
And just by exercising more, he was able to get off the statins, continued eating what he was eating. He started exercising more, physically moving his body more, physically sweating every day. and he got off the drugs. So it's not like you just need to avoid all of these foods. If you can make up for what are compromises in one area by being more dialed in other areas.
Very cool. So you have a story that you're going to share from this weekend, and then we want to get to the growth story.
Oh, right. So yeah, because of my background with Lyme's disease, a ton of clients come to me for help with that. And, I now refer to them as they're most of the time they're experiencing symptoms commonly referred to as Lyme's disease. Sometimes it is Lyme's disease, and then it's the Borrelia bacteria that's causing their symptoms, but often it's not. And when we start going through some of the processes that I use with clients to help these folks, they don't need the antibiotics. They don't need the herbal antimicrobials. But I had a young man. He was also 33, named Bill, and he came to me, and he was in real bad shape. His parents owned a big farm down in Indiana, and he had Lyme's disease for 2 or 3 years. He'd seen a number of the top Lyme literate physicians in the country. Some of them have books that are wildly popular in the space. Well, wildly popular with people that are struggling with Lyme's disease, and nothing was working. So we started working together, and I made some recommendations. Within the first week or two, he messaged me, and he's like, this is the best I've felt in years. And we hadn't done anything to address the Lyme. He came in this past weekend. He'd done an immersion weekend as part of his package. And he came in, and we were running around doing all sorts of crazy stuff. We were doing like float tanks and vitamin injections and cryotherapy and acupuncture and this and that, yoga outside, just having a blast. And it came time for dinner, and I said, I'm like, what do you want to eat? What are you in the mood to eat? And he's like, honestly, man, he's like, I haven't had anything that I've really enjoyed in months. He's like, I kind of enjoy eating a lot of plants and veggies and stuff, and I try to make it taste as good as possible, but it's not like a pizza. It's not like Thai food. That's like, it's not like sushi. That stuff I really used to love, but I know how it affects me. And I said, what if I showed you how to eat some of those foods so that it didn't sideline you? And he was like, that's possible. And I said, yeah. I'm like, how long has it been since you ate any of them? He's like, months. He was very, very strict. And part of the reason he got such fast results was because he was an incredibly fast implementer. Like if I told him to pick up a supplement or something, he would message me 30 seconds later and be like, I've already taken 2 doses. Obviously that's an exaggeration, but he was very, very quick to implement things. And that's why he got such powerful results. So I said, yeah, let's do that. I know this seems counterintuitive that you're coming in for an immersion weekend and I'm going to take you out for Thai food, but there is an emotional component to health that comes with this stuff. And when you feel like you are around your family and you cannot partake and celebrate with them at even close to the same level, when you feel alienated, when your family is annoyed by the fact that you can't participate in the meals that they're cooking and all this stuff, I know that that's hard on you. And I know that you feel stuck because you don't know what else to do. So let's do this. So on Friday night, we went for Thai food. And on Saturday night, we had pizza. And of course, I showed him some ways to do this so that it didn't adversely affect him. And the pizza, he noticed for probably about 20 minutes, he felt a little off. But that was it. I mean, we're talking about foods that normally would have had him feeling junky for 2, 3, 4 days. And he was, you would have thought it was like Christmas 1985 and he just opened up a Nintendo. He was that excited to be eating Thai food and pizza. And so I think it's very often that we I don't know what the word I'm looking. We accept that, I guess I'll just never be able to eat those foods ever again. And it's usually because there's underlying health issues that aren't being fixed. And that was one of the cases with Nick. he's a guy, he's pretty well known in the health and fitness space. He's got a fairly large company, around like 50,000 subscribers on his email list. And he has me coach his clients because he doesn't do coaching. And so when people need more help than they can get from buying this is the growth story, by the way.
Okay, cool.
Smooth transition. So when people needed more help than they could get from his books and things like that, he would put them in touch with me, and we'd see if they were a fit for the coaching program and kind of go from there. Well, Nick finally reached out and said, he's like, hey, would you mind talking? Because I feel like I've got some stuff going on and I'm stuck. Nick knows a lot about supplements and the ancestral health movement and different types of workouts and things, but he was feeling like something was still off with his health. So we worked together for a while. I did some of the health assessments, and he was struggling with his sex drive, not just libido, but also function. His energy was erratic. Same thing with his mood, and he had some other stuff going on. So after going through, getting him the health assessments, looking at his results, the wheels got turning, and I said, have you ever suspected parasites?
Ooh.
And he was like, no. And him and his wife, they travel all around the world, and but a big misconception is that parasites are something that only affects people that have been to third world countries and or that eat raw fish. And it's far from the case. In fact, the same way that I think 10 to 20 years from now, ketones will be considered a fourth macronutrient, I think we're going to start realizing that parasites are something that I don't want to use the word epidemic, but far more common than people realize.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree with you. My mom was sort of way ahead of herself, and back in the 80s, she took us to naturopath in the 80s. We went dairy free and grain free back in the 80s when I was growing up, got us on supplements. So she was like way ahead of herself. And then she got into parasites, and we all were tested, and the whole family had 3 parasites, 2 of which were from Mexico, but one was from simply owning cats.
Yeah.
And so we had to get on this medication and the supplement protocol. Actually, it was the supplement protocol. It was really cool. We didn't get on any like prescription medication. It was supplements. And then we got tested again, and we were cleared of it. But she read the book, and I haven't been able to find it, so I think it was out of print. But it was called "Guess What Came to Dinner."
Yeah.
And so that's always been on my mind because, sure, 2 of the 3 of them were from Mexico, but like half of the population owns at least one pet. Or you go to a friend's house and you pet that pet and you catch a parasite.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're right. It's such a common thing, and it's not really discussed unless, unless someone's has a severe symptoms enough for a doctor to finally run some tests. So I'm on the edge of my seat here, kind of nervous about where the parasite was.
So a couple weeks passed. I gave Nick a few protocols. I usually work clients through, we start with some strategic supplementation and some other, one of the tools that I use is the soda silver pulsar, colloidal silver, and some things like that we've found can be helpful. And there's usually it's a multifactorial approach. And then if that doesn't work, but the symptoms persist, then we move on to prescriptions. And there's a protocol there that I recommend, because some of these things are hard to get rid of. And I've had people that have done herbal parasite protocols, sometimes multiple times over. And it's not until we use this somewhat extensive prescription protocol that they get things out that don't deserve to be there. But Nick, we were doing some work with his liver and his gallbladder along with these supplements. And he called me up and he said, so I've been on the toilet all day today, literally pooping parasites.
Wow.
And
they were dead?
They were dead. And one of them the largest was 16 centimeters in length.
Oh my gosh.
So he just recently, he wanted to, he's like, I want to do a mailing for the coaching program before you launch all this stuff with Biohacking Secrets. He goes, do you have any good stories that we could tell? And I was like, how about you pooping out 16 centimeter parasites? And he was like, oh yeah, good point. I'll tell that one. So he shared this story with his list, and he shared pictures and everything.
Oh my God.
And we've been just flooded with applications that yesterday you asked about a typical day, not, beyond the nutrition stuff. Yesterday started at 5 a.m. and I wasn't getting off Skype until after 11 p.m. and got a new client in Thailand, my first deaf client that I've ever worked with, and we've got a long line of other people that I got to get on the phone with and figure out if we can help them because of that mailing.
Very cool. What's so if someone thinks they have a parasite, what's the lab that you recommend people use?
So there are some labs that people can use. I now do it. I use more symptom-based diagnoses because a lot of the labs are inaccurate and they produce false negatives. I used to be a huge lab guy. And what I found was that because of the many different types of parasites, because of the different life cycles that parasites have, and because of the fact that no one wants to consider the possibility that they have parasites because it grosses us out, doing the labs can sometimes do more harm than good, because people, they invest $500, they do the test, they get back a negative, and they're like, oh, okay, it's not parasites. What else? And what we found is that those same people, when we go through the protocol and we say, all right, let's look at this intelligently. Here are the symptoms that you're experiencing. What could this be? What does that leave us with? If I intuitively believe it's parasites and they're exhibiting a number of symptoms to suggest that's a possibility, and we push through with the protocol, it's not something that really has people sidelined or compromises their quality of life to a great degree. Even after a false or after a test that came back negative, we've had people pooping parasites.
Whoa. Wow. Crazy. Well, I want to just plug your book. So, because, it sounds like you've got a lot of really cool information for people to share, and whether they become your client or not, they should definitely get on your email list, because I have a feeling you're going to be coming up with more and more great information. So that is biohackingsecrets.com. Now back to, after we've talked about those wonderful stories, I would like to go back to just finishing up. What do you eat in a typical day? Give us some ideas. So you start off with your keto cocktail. Mm-hmm. What else is in that keto cocktail?
Yeah, so I like to wait until I get hungry, and then I do the keto cocktail. If I were to keep it real simple, it would be a packet of keto OS, and that's exogenous beta hydroxybutyrate. So without going into too much nerd speak, when we fast for around 24 hours or restrict our carbohydrates to a degree that our body starts producing endogenous ketones. So endogenous from within the body, exogenous from without the body. You think like exoskeleton, exogenous from outside the body. Our body starts producing beta hydroxybutyrate and acetoacetate. Well, we now have supplements where you can take beta hydroxybutyrate. Now, this doesn't mean your body's going into ketosis, but it does mean that your body can reap a lot of the benefits of having higher blood levels of beta hydroxybutyrate. And that's associated with improved oxygen utilization. They found that athletes that take beta hydroxybutyrate 20 to 30 minutes before workouts produce more ATP per unit per oxygen molecule, more mental clarity. And I just find that I'm more focused when I keep my feeding during the day light. and delay my first meal. It also makes it easier when you're trying to stay lean if you condense your feeding window to a smaller time frame. So then I do my keto cocktail. I do a packet of the Keto OS, and if anyone listening wanted to try that, you can get a sample for free at like biohacks.proveitnow.com. It's PRUVIT now.com, and they've got like some sample packs so you can try and see if you like it. And then I just do a tablespoon of the Perillo Cap-Tri MCT oil. And then I'm good for like another 3 or 4 hours. Sometimes I'll go till 3, even 6 p.m. without eating a full meal. I'm staying hydrated throughout the day. Usually, if I have 3 meals in a day, one of them is a shake. I have a shake that the formula I'm doing right now. I've been enjoying Maximum Vibrance. It's by this. There's many people have probably heard of Green Vibrance, or maybe they haven't. It's like a greens formula, but Maximum Vibrance includes plant-based protein and greens formula. And if you look at the ingredients in this product, it's just incredible that they're able to fit all of this stuff into one supplement. So I'll do like 2 scoops of Maximum Vibrance. If I'm not worried about, if I'm not trying to stay lean, I'll do, in that shake, I'll do a can of maybe light organic coconut milk. If I've been physically active and worked out and depleted some glycogen, I'll include maybe, a bag of organic berries, like organic blueberries. And then that's, and then I'll put in some other supplements, like maybe I'll put in some D-ribose for energy production. Maybe I'll include some prebiotics, probiotics, different fibers. Maybe I'll throw in a bag of baby spinach, and that'll be like a good shake. And then I'll do another meal will be a huge salad, probably like what anyone, if you were looking at the size of the salad I eat, you would think it was for a family of 4. And I'll do that with like extra virgin olive oil, Bragg apple cider vinegar. I like what I call the trinity of making vegetables taste good, which is Bragg nutritional yeast, pink Himalayan salt. I'm using Onnit right now, and then Bragg sea kelp delight. Those 3 things on a salad make it far more delicious. One of the secrets that restaurants have to making their salads taste really good is they salt them. So putting some pink Himalayan salt on your salad that alone will help immensely in making it more palatable. But then if you combine those 3 things, it's really, really delicious. I've had clients that can't even fathom having a salad every day, and they're like, it's not bad. I kind of like it. And then when they see their body changing and how much better they feel, they're like, all right, I can do this. And then another meal would be, it would depend on how physically active I was that day, because I try to, generally speaking, sync my carbohydrate consumption with my energy expenditure. But if I'd been really physically active, I might include, in dinner, I'd do a bunch of veggies, maybe a whole bunch of broccoli, maybe a piece of wild caught fish, maybe some oysters. And if I was going to replenish some glycogen, maybe I'd include a sweet potato, yams, squash. Sometimes I'll dive into, a little bit of rice here and there just because it's delicious. I don't feel as good with the rice. I don't feel like it's as clean for me, but I absolutely love rice. So, we make little exceptions here and there. And sometimes those exceptions are what make the programs sustainable. And that's kind of like a rough 3-meal template.
That's awesome. I love the idea of your salads. What goes in your salads besides greens? I'm somewhat what you would call I don't know, lazy in the kitchen. So I'll grab a huge metal bowl. I'll dump in a big thing of like power greens. So any type of organic dark leafy greens, and I do organic just to stay away from the pesticides. With my dad and Parkinson's, one of the first questions they asked him was, "Did you grow up on a farm?" And it's because there's a clear association between exposure to pesticides and some of these neurological disorders. So when I have the ability to avoid that exposure, I try to do so. So I get my greens organic. I'll fill the bowl up. Sometimes I'll throw in like half an avocado. Maybe I'll cut up some
some peppers, green, red, orange, yellow, and then I'll dress it up with I like the Bragg olive oil and apple cider vinegar and the nutritional yeast and the sea kelp delight that I mentioned. Throw some Himalayan salt on there. And then if I feel like I'm craving protein, then I'll add some protein. And maybe that will be, if I'm really, really lazy, maybe it's a can of Wild Planet wild caught fish of some variety. Maybe it's, sometimes I do free range chicken, sometimes free range turkey. Once every week or two, I'll do a huge grass-fed ribeye steak because, again, that's just one of those things that I enjoy. Does that kind of give you a better idea?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Excellent. Thank you. I think you really given our listeners a ton to think about. We didn't even get to touch on the subject that you're most passionate about. I'd love to have you back on the show at some point to share more. You are most passionate about helping to end childhood obesity, which you shared with me before we got started, which is huge. And I'm looking at the list of things that you've helped people with, one of them being toxic overload. And I think, like, in my personal opinion, toxic overload plays a huge role in obesity and childhood obesity. Would you agree?
Yeah. I had this conversation with Dr. Joe Pizzorno, who literally wrote the book on functional medicine, and he's got one coming out in 2017 about just these epidemic levels of toxicity that we're seeing in society, and it's definitely playing a role in children. I think I see it even more so in the most common demographic that I see it in working with clients one-on-one is women in their 40s to 60s, usually women who don't sweat a lot and or experience constipation. And but yeah, it's probably also there with children. We've got three sources of toxicity in our lives. It's the stuff we're putting in our mouth, it's our environment, and it's the toxins being produced by things living inside of us, whether that's bacteria, parasites, candida, yeasts, fungi, mold. And it can be any one of those, or in the case of children, I think it's even more frequent that they are experiencing inflammation that is interfering with optimal weight loss and fat loss, just because kids, they're eating a lot of stuff that's marketed towards them, and it's loaded with these foods that we talked about are beneficial to avoid, the big five.
Absolutely. Anthony, I'd love to end today's interview with a challenge that you could give our listeners, something that they could do now and for the next 7 days to begin to see a shift in their health.
If someone wants to feel more energy, the challenge that I would give them is this: set aside 30 minutes a day for the next 7 days to sweat in whatever way you want. Ideally, doing something that is fun to you and that makes you feel good afterwards, where after 30 minutes of said activity, you feel better than you did before. But if you feel like you need to script a workout or anything that is somewhat complicated where you could experience resistance to the activity, don't do that. Just put on your shoes and get outside and move. Walk fast. If you can jog. And you want to do it outside, and you want to do it in the morning before life can get in the way, because we all think when we're hitting the snooze button and we're in bed telling ourselves all sorts of BS lies that we're going to do the workout after we get home from work or whatever. We realize time and time again that we get home and we've got family responsibilities, we've got to eat, we're tired from the day. So for 7 days, wake up half an hour earlier, 35 minutes earlier, don't think, put on your shoes, get outside and sweat. That is it. Just get outside and sweat. Stretch, move, whatever you can do to get yourself moving and breathing. And I promise you, within 7 days, you will feel a a marked difference in your energy and your mood.
Excellent. Thank you. Biohacker, fitness coach, Anthony DiClementi. Has been wonderful having you on the show. Please check out his free book. He's giving you a book, biohackingsecrets.com, biohackingsecrets.com. The links to everything that Anthony does is going to be in the show notes of this podcast, so go check that out. It's been a pleasure having you on. I have definitely learned a lot. I've been doing the ketogenic diet with my naturopath for several months now, but to have you say that ketones are going to be the fourth macro is very intriguing to me. So I look forward to following what you have to teach us and seeing where this goes, because I have a feeling that you are a trailblazer.
Well, thank you very much. It's the pleasure has been all mine. I appreciate you having me on and having the opportunity to speak with everyone listening.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely want to have you back on the show to specifically talk about how you are helping to end childhood obesity. So we'll definitely have to have you back.
I would love that.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are you looking to optimize your health? Are you looking to get the best supplements at the lowest price? For high quality supplements and to talk to someone about what supplements are best for you, go to takeyoursupplements.com and one of our fantastic true health coaches will help you pick out the right supplements for you that are the highest quality and the best price. That's takeyoursupplements.com. takeyoursupplements.com. That's takeyoursupplements.com. Be sure to ask about free shipping and our awesome referral program.